Greetings, friends. I am Vitaly Portnikov. Donald Trump is again disappointed in Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who, according to Trump, might not accept the latest proposals regarding a peaceful settlement in Ukraine. However, Donald Trump's comments look, to put it mildly, strange. He says that the Russian side agrees with this proposal, although we have not yet heard any official confirmation from the Kremlin that the Russian Federation agrees with the peace plan presented in Moscow by Trump's special representatives, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. As is known, the aide to the president of the Russian Federation, Yuri Ushakov, and he was the only official who publicly commented on the negotiations between Russian President Putin and the American representatives, emphasized that there are points in the U.S. proposals that Moscow is ready to agree with, and there are points that are not accepted in the Russian capital. Thus, there is no one to confirm the fact that Russia has agreed to the American peace proposal. It is also surprising that Trump says Ukrainian representatives who participated in consultations with Witkoff and Kushner agreed to the American proposal. After all, officials cannot make decisions for the heads of state. What would Trump himself say if his subordinate, say, the Secretary of State or a special representative like Witkoff, agreed to some proposals even without his own familiarity with the content of the document? However, I can imagine that something similar could happen with Trump, because one gets the impression that the American president simply does not read documents to their end. But at the same time, regarding the main meaning of the proposals, he must be informed before making a final decision. Trump is obliged to know what he is signing, even if he doesn't read it. But the issue is not even this. The issue is that Trump does not claim that Zelensky disagreed with the proposal because he dislikes the content of the American plan. His idea is that Zelensky did not read this document. And perhaps he is appealing to the fact that today in London, Umerov and Andriy Yermak are supposed to inform the Ukrainian president about the results of their negotiations with Kushner and Witkoff. Thus, these statements by Trump are a specific type of pressure on Zelensky, urging him to agree with these proposals, even if they are not accepted by the Ukrainian side. The task of Ukraine's representatives, of course, was not to agree or disagree with those proposals that could have been set forth by the special representative of the U.S. president and his sons-in-law, but to familiarize themselves with these proposals, offer their own, and then, naturally, fly out for special consultations with the president of Ukraine and the leaders of European countries, who, by the way, are meeting with Zelensky today to discuss the situation surrounding the peace plan. In reality, all of this is just ordinary white noise, inherent to Donald Trump's activity in the office of the President of the United States. Because even if we imagine that his pressure on Zelensky succeeds, that the Ukrainian president agrees to those proposals of the American side that resolutely contradict Ukraine's national interests, let's say, regarding the withdrawal of Ukrainian troops from that part of the Donetsk region territory which is currently controlled by the legitimate Ukrainian government, this does not mean at all that Trump will achieve the end of the war. Because, as I have repeatedly explained, the president of Russia has no interest in this ending on the terms proposed by Trump, which do not foresee the disappearance of the Ukrainian state from the political map of this world. Putin does not have this interest, and will not have it until the moment the Russian president is convinced of the absence of economic and demographic resources to continue the war. So without strong pressure specifically on Putin, without a struggle for the ruination of the Russian economy, and not with the dream of earning money in cooperation with Putin, Trump and his associates will be made fools of. And this will be obvious to the whole world, and this shame of theirs will go down in history and will not even bring them an extra dollar. However, for Trump and those incompetent people who head the self-infatuated American president's administration to become convinced of this, time must pass. And I think not that much time. And until that time, Trump will continue to act like a bull in a china shop, trying to pressure not those who need to be pressured to actually achieve a concrete result in at least the near future, but those whom he can force to agree with his delusion simply because Ukraine is interested in the support of the United States. But even here, Trump is limited in his actions, precisely because he, along with his team, is in an obvious political minority in the United States. Ukraine is supported by voters of the Democratic Party of the United States, which hopes for victory in the midterms as early as November of next year, and thus for the beginning of the end of the inglorious Trump era. And Ukraine is supported by voters of the Republican Party of the United States, the majority of whom, despite the position of ultra-conservatives from the post-fascist MAGA movement, continue to understand where the good is and where the bad is, and treat Russian President Putin and Russia as such in its neo-fascist framing extremely unfavorably. And already in January of this year, translators note, Portnikov likely means, next year, or the coming January, Trump, concerned about what will happen with the pre-election campaign in his country and the possibility of a new impeachment, will be forced to pay much more attention to the opinion of his compatriots than today. One can say that Trump is currently in the role of Cinderella at a political ball. Already on January 1, 2026, the carriage of his popularity will begin turning into a pumpkin, and his entourage into rats, who will start, if not running in different directions, then at least contemplating a life in which there will be not only Donald Trump himself, but even the memory of the incumbent American president and his capabilities. And in this situation, the best instrumental action to avoid agreeing with this constant pressure from Trump is to wait out the moment when he can allow himself this inappropriate arrogance. Thank you, friends. Stay on this channel, subscribe to it, subscribe to my social networks, to the channel on Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, and Donatello, which help develop these resources. Use the sponsorship function on YouTube itself. Victory and peace to you. Good luck.